I really appreciate everyone taking the time today, but again, especially Chad, who's with the United States Department of Homeland Security. They have the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, CISA. And as Alex mentioned a few minutes ago, I know when everybody thinks cybersecurity, you think Silicon Valley, you think maybe New York or Washington, D.C. Chad comes from the hub of cybersecurity in the nation, which would be the metropolis of Bogalusa, Louisiana. So really awesome to have a native helping us out today. But very seriously, everybody's heard about these large-scale cyber attacks, whether it be Sony or the recent attack against the FBI and their email system. These efforts to intrude hospital systems, the state of Louisiana, these schools that have been held at ransom. And we've all got to make sure that we're using the best protection, we're using the best practices to prevent these things from happening. Look, the internet has been absolutely extraordinary in our efforts to connect with the rest of the world, to sell Cajun on the other side of the globe in order to expand opportunities for e-commerce. And look, the reality is, as many of you know, simply being able to connect with your clients, giving you expanded economic opportunities, the convenience of sharing and processing data, it has been absolutely amazing. But the bad folks have also taken advantage of this. So we've got to make sure that as we take advantage of this awesome capability, this awesome resource that we have, that we are also staying on par with the cybersecurity features to make sure that this truly is an asset and doesn't become a liability. At home, two quick examples of where we've seen cyber-related issues that have challenged us. Number one is in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. We have seen hundreds and hundreds of people that have had their identity stolen for the purpose of getting FEMA assistance. People have been effectively using cybercrime or been able to tap in, using the internet, tap into FEMA's claims page, acting as though they're someone else, providing fake bank accounts or siphoning the money off through other accounts. And what it's done is it's prevented the real Hurricane Ida victims from getting assistance. And a trend that also we've received a lot of contact on lately is folks that have been going and changing your address, doing a change of address through the Postal Service online, and then filing for credit cards or applying for credit cards in your name. Then the credit card ends up going to this change of address that they filed, and these people are swiping credit cards under your name, ruining your credit. And again, it's another example of how cybercrimes have been taking advantage of newer technology and the convenience features that it brings along. So with that, I want to turn it over to the regional advisor for CISA, again, the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency. I really appreciate Mr. Chad Adams being with us today, a Louisiana native, to share with us the role of CISA, to talk to us about cybercrimes, trends, and best practices. So Mr. Adams, thanks for being with us today.
So my name is Chad Adams. I am a cybersecurity advisor. Let me get my my screen shared here. Is everybody able to see my presentation? Awesome. So thank you. So thank you for inviting me, Mr. Gray, Representative Graves. I am a cybersecurity advisor located in Region 6. I actually am up in Tyler. I am a Louisiana native, as he said. I am from the North Shore. Graduated Southeastern Louisiana University, and I always enjoy getting back and being able to work with the partners and people in the state of Louisiana. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about cybersecurity, some of the things that's going on specifically around ransomware. Ransomware is one of our biggest threats right now. And you know, we want to kind of discuss that a little bit, kind of tell you a little bit about what CISA does, the threat landscape that's out there, the players. CISA, very much, we are considered the nation's risk advisors. We have kind of a multiple role within you know, cybersecurity and protective security, as it would be around risk. Most of our assessments are organized around risk management for cyber or physical infrastructure. Some of the things that the Cybersecurity Advisor program does, and we do quite a bit of different things, but some of the main things that we do is assessments. CSAs will typically do assessments. We'll come in and we'll evaluate critical risk. We'll look at cyber risk from a risk perspective and provide you different types of products assessments, risk-based assessments, and things like that, to help prevent and weather cyber threats that you might have or cyber incidents that might come down to your different organizations. We also try to encourage best practices, risk mitigation strategies. We help work with cyber communities of interest and help build working capacities, working groups. We participate in working groups, both on local levels, state levels, federal levels, things like that. And we try to help initiate and develop those working groups to help build cybersecurity as it would be in those areas. We are advisors, very much so. So we come in sometimes and we will listen to organizations' needs and wants and the threats that they're facing and try to help give them awareness, inform them or educate them in different things that they might be able to do, provide them with tools and resources that the federal government might provide, or even state government. Try to put them in contact with state or federal to try to give them some of the tools and methods and information that they might need to help raise awareness, and get further in protecting themselves and their organizations in cybersecurity. And at the end of the day, we're very much more of an incident coordination organization. We help coordinate incidents. We help provide a federal response in some cases when needed to help bring in federal assets from different agencies, and help do a kind of a cohesive assistance and bringing together incident support and lessons learned and things like that to help benefit the organizations that might be having cybersecurity threats or events or incidents happening at that time. So so a lot of our assessments and things that we do as CSAs and CISA in a whole is looking at things from a cyber resiliency perspective. We're looking at an organization's ability to adapt and change and sustain and recover from threats that happen and from things that happen. According to Presidential Directive 21 back in 2013, President Obama kind of defined what cyber resiliency would be and how the federal government kind of views this. And very simply put, cyber resiliency is your ability as an organization to withstand and recover from any deliberate attack, an accident, or naturally occurring threats such as hurricanes. That's a big thing in Louisiana. Hurricane recovery, things like that. That affects cybersecurity as much sometimes as it does physical assets that an organization might have. So cyber resiliency is your ability to withstand and recover quickly with as little impact on your abilities to sustain your critical services that an organization might produce. And so that's what we're here for. Today, I'm going to talk more about more deliberate attacks, more threats around ransomware and malware, because really in today's landscape, ransomware, malware, that is what is gonna, what is one of the biggest things that's happening currently. If you're an organization, and it doesn't really matter your size, whether you're small, medium, or large, the likelihood that you're going to be exposed to malware or ransomware or both is very high. And these are some numbers on this slide that kind of give you some idea of what ransomware kind of looks like. And some of these numbers are very, very, very telling. They're very shocking in some cases. We paid out as a company over the previous time frame that this is situated around over $1 billion worth of annual ransomware payments, which means not only were companies hit, but they were hit so hard that they had to pay out ransomware, which as an organization, as the federal government, we don't typically recommend you pay ransomware for multiple reasons, but companies paid out over 1 billion. There was a 56% growth of ransomware attacks in just 2002 to 2019 alone. There was $6 trillion cost of cybercrime in 2021. And with that, ransomware makes up a huge share, a large portion of that cost. 42%, that means almost half of public sector organizations had a ransomware attack in the last 12 months. 12 months, almost half. That's staggering. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, and we'll talk about that in just a minute as to some of the reasons why that's happening, and then what you can maybe do as an organization to alleviate this and maybe weather these attacks, or maybe prevent them in the future. As CISA, we realize that the targets are broad. You might think, I'm a small organization, or I'm a medium organization. I'm not a big, huge sector organization down in Louisiana. So the likelihood that I'm going to get attacked by a ransomware is low. I don't have as many employees, or I'm not really in that cybersecurity space necessarily. But that's not necessarily true. There are so many targets. A lot of times targets are just targets of opportunity. They look for unpatched systems. They look for anybody that they can find and provide malware to initiate some of these ransomware attacks, and they attack you. Sometimes you're targeted. Other times it's just completely random. Sometimes it's because they know you can pay out money, and you have the funds and the resources to pay out large amounts of ransomware ransoms. But in some cases they just do it because it's a target of opportunity, and you may or may not pay, and they may do that on a large scale. These are typically done by different state and different actors across the world, most of the time outside the country, and almost always with the intended purpose of financial gain. They're doing this to make money. Some of these are even very, very professionally set up. Almost you'd call them companies or corporations. They're doing it on a professional view. Some of the staging targets, some smaller organizations with less sophisticated networks, a lot of times get staged. In some cases, just attacked. Might even be the intended target because they feel you don't have the ability to protect yourself the way you might need to protect yourself to stop or prevent these attacks, so they can get a little bit of money out of you. Some of them are might have existing relationships with you, and they may have already attacked you once, or they may have done other different attack vectors or different things with you at some point, and so you're already sort of an intended target, and they already kind of have a view of you and kind of know a little bit about you. Some of these, they might deliberately select you. You're not targets of opportunity. You're selected because you're a police department. You're selected because you're a state government or a local government. You're a government official. Things like that. You might have a political stance that they don't agree with, and so they may deliberately select you for those reasons. And a lot of times they might just select you because you're an easy target and they want to see how well they can do. And so you're more of a staged attack. And then they might want to go for a larger attack later. And so they want to kind of see how they can do it, kind of get their feet wet, see if it's something they can be, do well, so that maybe down the road they can attack you and or attack a larger organization and maybe make more money, maybe do it to a higher extent. So a lot of different reasons that you might be attacked, even if you're not a larger target. On this slide, we have intended targets, and we say these are small, medium, and large organizations. Again, it doesn't really matter your size. Some of these might be different critical infrastructure sectors. You might be power, you might be water, you might be financial sectors. They tend to want to go to the more, less mature organizations, because typically you don't have as much ability to prevent or withstand their attacks. So the likelihood that they'll get a successful penetration, successful encryption of your data and of your network, and then the likelihood that you'll have to pay is a lot higher if you're less mature with less preventative ability. And then some of the intended targets are sophisticated networks with more defensive cyber tools. They may attack those just because if they can get into those networks, you're gonna be your ability to pay is going to be much greater. So a lot of times they're attacking SCADA networks, industrial control system networks, so water, wastewater, power, electrical distribution networks, our natural gas and our pipelines. Those are all at risk, and they're typically managed, monitored by less mature systems in the way of SCADA and ICS, industrial control system networks. So a lot of times that is more of an intended target than your financial systems or your financial groups or something like that, who have a far greater ability to protect themselves, and they're we call them more mature. They're of a higher level of preventative measures already in place to prevent some of these things. So what are cyber essentials, and why are cyber essentials needed? So we're saying cyber attackers, and these are the people that are doing this. They're becoming more indiscriminate in their choice of targets, right? They care less about who they're attacking, because really what they're trying to do is attack anybody, encrypt you, and make money off of you. To be quite honest, they're looking for a wider range of victims, small, medium organizations. I typically work around Louisiana, northern Louisiana, South Louisiana, as well as Texas, and a lot of what we see are smaller municipalities, counties and parishes, police departments, jurisdictions, things like that get ransomware, and they get it because they're easier. Their footprint is there, and they can cause a lot of havoc, and a lot of these places have no choice in some cases but to try to remediate that. Some cases paying the ransom, which has happened. And you're less prepared to protect your own networks. Maybe your funding's not there, your resources are not there, as good as they should be. So it's not just always large businesses. If you're a large business, doesn't mean you're immune to the fact that you might get ransomware, but for sure, small and medium organizations are being attacked as much, if not greater, than large organizations. So I think it's very important for us to realize that as an organization, as a country, as a state, as the state of Louisiana, if you're small, you're not immune to that just because, you may not have as much resources, or there's not as much of a reason to attack you. That's not true. There's just as much reason to attack you. So I think it's very important to think about that in that way, and that you need to make sure you're doing the things that you need to do to prevent malware and ransomware, just like a large or a medium-sized company. And because you might think that you're small, you might get a false sense of security. You might have a lack of awareness of the risk. You might not follow the threats and the risks that are out there. You might not prepare for them appropriately, and you really might not have a good plan for how to respond to these. And as Cisa, that's some of the things we're trying to do to help you. Some of the services and assessments we provide is to try to measure these risks for you, how to measure your ability to respond to these things, give you back reports, and then work with you as an advisory perspective to try to give you the more of an ability and more information to be able to weather these storms and make sure you understand that you can be a target, and help you be better prepared to weather those, therefore increasing obviously your resiliency, which is your cyber resiliency, which is our goal. So where does that leave us? What happens when you have a ransomware? What happens if your organization, your small business, or the school system, or the state or local parish government or city government has ransomware? It leaves teachers with the ability to not be able to teach because their networks are down. Sheriffs or police departments can't really respond to 911 calls as well as they should be able to. Maybe they can't keep their, it affects the court systems because you can't enter in your information into the 911, into the record management systems and things like that because they're not there, or 10 years of your data has been lost because of a ransomware incident. So you can't look back when you're trying to prosecute some of these cases down the road to try to see what the information of the calls, things like that, which has been an issue we've had. Small businesses, you lose access to your data, to your financial data, things like that. You lose the trust of your customers because credit card information is stolen. Personal identifiable information like their names and their social security numbers, their addresses that you might need to collect. That information gets stolen, encrypted, and just gets removed, in other words, and you're unable to do that. So you lose the trust of your customer. Therefore, it hurts your business. So it's a big deal. It's a lot of money. It costs the state and the country a lot of money over time for these types of attacks. So a little bit is where do I start? What can I do about this? And we have something called Cyber Essentials within Cisa, and Cyber Essentials is a very simple set of tools that you can download. It gives you some very simple things that you can adopt as an organization if you're a small or medium-sized organization, less mature. Things about password policies. How long should your passwords be? It gives you information on how often maybe passwords should change, security awareness training information, things like that. It helps you that have a limited or no knowledge of cybersecurity practices or terminology to help still develop some sort of ability to safeguard your organization from a cyber perspective. That's why we call it essentials. These are the essential things you should be doing as an organization, and we try to provide that in a nice group of information, set of information that you can download and use as an organization to try to help you determine where you need to go from that. If you're more mature, we have assessments. We have assessments that measure you around NIST framework and cybersecurity framework and other frameworks that are developed to help you manage your operational and cyber risk as you move forward. We very much take a holistic risk management approach. Cybersecurity should be done from a risk management perspective. You have to identify your risk, and then you have to apply dispositions and do risk management processes around the risk that are identified due to the threats that are out there on a day-to-day basis. And this should be leadership driven. This should come from the top down. Your IT guy shouldn't be the guy that's trying to put together your cybersecurity risk policy. That stuff should come top down in your organization. It has to be taken seriously by senior management and the director level positions, and then it has to be pushed down throughout the organization to help manage that cyber risk. And that's something that we really try to get across to organizations, is that it has to be a top down approach. So how do we drive strategy, investment, and culture? What should we be doing? What should you be looking at as an organization to help drive the cybersecurity strategy? What should you be investing in, and what should you be making the culture of your organization be around cybersecurity and to prevent ransomware and things going on? And it should be approached as a business risk, just like any other risk. Cybersecurity, ransomware should be approached as a business risk. You need to look into your organization's operations to see what you needed to do and what is actually dependent upon IT. There's systems in your organization that are solely dependent upon your ability to have IT up and working, and you need to identify those systems and those critical services that you provide so that you can properly manage that risk around those services. You need to lead investment. You need to invest money, people, and resources and processes into basic cybersecurity. If you're not already investing and part of your investment strategy isn't cybersecurity, and it's something else like IT, building systems, or something else, you need to start looking at cybersecurity as an investment, and you need to start investing in it as such. And you need to leverage your sector partners. You need to leverage your Homeland Security and CISA representatives, your cybersecurity advisors, your protective security advisors, who will come and help you with some of your physical security risk. Your camera systems, your man traps. You should leverage your cybersecurity advisors, such as myself, to help manage your cyber risk and your cybersecurity policies and help minimize some of these risks. At the end of the day, as CISA, we're trying to get you proactive, not reactive to cybersecurity. We want you to be able to weather the storm, not always have to respond to the incident that happened that has you out of business at this time and day. So we want you to be able to prevent that and not have to go through that. So leverage your federal partners. Also leverage some of the other federal partner players, the key players such as the FBI or the Secret Service or the different groups that are the MS-ISAC, the different groups that are out there that are either doing information sharing or threat or asset management response. And at the end of the day, leaders have to lead. Again, top-down type view. We have to, as an organization, we have to learn what training resources are available, and we have to properly train our employees. We have to develop a culture of awareness. A lot of ransomware can actually be prevented with good cybersecurity and security awareness training activities. A lot of ransomware comes in through the realm of phished emails or spear phished emails, right? Or just blanket sent emails. And your employees, no matter how big or small you are, need to be trained on how to identify emails that are suspected and could possibly be malware or ransomware or even a scam. Representative Graves was just talking quite a bit about some scams and things that are going on. And so scams are a big thing where they're, lying to you, telling you things and trying to get you to do activities that will otherwise compromise your organization. And being able to being able to identify these scams and these fake emails and links that you shouldn't click on, that starts with a good policy in place, having good security awareness training, and then taking the initiative as an organization to incorporate that training on a recurring basis. That will greatly reduce your cyber threat and your risk associated with ransomware and cybersecurity threats that are out there. We've seen that ransomware is directly affected by the amount of knowledge that you give to your employees. So no matter how big or small you are, you need to be looking at trying to do some training, and that needs to come from the top down and in the form of a policy that training has to be done, and that should become the culture of your organization, that training is ongoing as far as cybersecurity and threat mitigation, as well as asset protection. And if you're too small, if you say, well, I'm too small, I can't, I don't have the people or the processes to really develop my own security training awareness program. Well, there's plenty of packages and private security companies out there that will sell you packages or that will work with you to develop your own in-house security training programs. We work with organizations that have had those things done all the time, and they work very well. And so there's companies out there that you can go to help develop you a good training and awareness program. So I suggest you look into that if you're not something you're already doing. That's one big piece. You gotta have a good security awareness. The second part is your technical systems. You got to have some good network security engineers. You got to have some good IT security engineers, some good cybersecurity engineers. You have to be doing the basic cyber hygiene activities to keep your systems up to date, keep them protected. You have to know what's on your network. And by doing that, you have to create an asset inventory. I have a star by number 1 there, 4 stars, that says understand what is on your network to create an inventory of all your hardware and software assets. If you don't know what hardware and software assets you own as a company, and you don't have a good grasp on what asset you have, we call it an asset inventory. If you don't have a good asset inventory, how can you expect to protect your organization the way it needs to be protected if you're not even 100% clear on what assets you own and that are deployed in your organization? So an asset inventory is imperative, absolutely imperative. You got to know what assets you have so that you can know how to protect them and what needs to be protected. You need to make sure you don't have unsupported systems, unauthorized hardware, unauthorized software that's been installed by maybe your employees or maybe other groups. You need to make sure that the software and hardware that's in your organization is approved, and that the risk associated with those pieces of equipment and software are taken into consideration and risk mitigation is done. You need to make sure you have secure configurations Make sure you're configuring those firewalls and those technical devices appropriately. If you don't know how to do it, if you don't have the talent in your organization to do it, there's plenty of consultants and third-party vendors you can hire that will help you do this for you, but you need to make sure that that is done. Big black bold letters for the fourth one. Patch your systems. You have to keep your systems patched. You have to run Microsoft patches if you're running Microsoft operations. If you're running specific hard software or hardware, you got to make sure that those software patches get updated. That is where malware and ransomware gets introduced, is because they look for unpatched systems and people that are just slow to patch their network. You need to as soon as possible make sure your IT and security departments are patching your systems and keeping your vulnerabilities to a minimum. Use email and web browser security settings to protect yourself against spoofed email. This is the security awareness training. We got to be able to understand it as humans, but also we need to use our technology to make sure that we're using our email and our web browsing software and hardware and things we have settings, and make sure that that is set appropriately to help us cut down on the amount of spoofed email, phished email, things that are coming through that we're unsure of. So we need to use our technology that we own, as well as the human portion of being trained properly. So there's a two piece to that. So make sure you're using your technology appropriately. Make sure you control your access control. Make sure people only, make sure you have a culture focused on actively managed access. People should only have access to what they need access to and not more. And your IT and network security department should be able to handle that. Administrative privileges should be only provided on need to know, and it should be least privilege. You shouldn't give the keys to the castle to everybody, right? Only people that need access to certain things should have access to certain things. And you need to leverage multiple forms of authentication. If you're not doing two-factor authentication or some form of it yet, you should be looking into that. Two-factor authentication is where we need to go in the next 5 to 10 years. Everybody should be two-factor authentication for sure. It's an investment. It's a money investment for sure, and it's difficult. But two-factor authentication is where we need to go. And if you're not already using that completely across your organization, it's something you need to be considering. And make sure we have good password policies. We need unique passwords. We need long passwords, 8 to 10 characters, uppercase, lowercase, special characters. Don't be using four-letter passwords. Don't be using your address or things that are easily guessable about you. You need to be using passphrases, not necessarily passwords, and combinations of uppercase, lowercase, and special characters. Make sure we're using good passwords to secure our systems. Backups. I mean, we can't talk enough about ransomware. Backups with ransomware. If you're going to have ransomware, the best way to be protected to weather a ransomware storm so that you don't have to pay out a ransom is to make sure you have regular, automated, good backups that are offline. You need to have backups offline. You can't have your backups sitting on your network, because a lot of ransomware in today's world is set to search out for backups as one of the first things they do and encrypt them. So, you need to make sure you have backups being done, that you've tested your backups and that they will work when they need, that they will actually, they're not corrupt, that the backups are valid and will work. And then you need to make sure you have offline backups in some fashion, whether you're using a third-party vendor, cloud provider, and you're putting your backups somewhere else, but you need it somewhere other than your local network. You need to be doing offline backups. We can't stress that enough. That's one of the best ways to mitigate or to weather a ransomware incident is good tested offline backups. I mean, I can't say that enough. If you take anything away from this presentation, make sure you test your backups and you have some offline backups for sure. Be aware of what's happening on your network. Understand your network. Understand how your network is protected. Protect your backups with physical security, encryption, and offline copies, as we said, and learn what ways you can protect yourself from malware. Make sure you have anti-malware software, whether it's on your local desktops, laptops, or it's a gateway device in your network that your network security division has put together. But learn how you can protect yourself from malware. Understand what malware is out there, and be proactive, be understanding what it is, what malware is, what ransomware is, understand how to know what's going on, what's common, what's happening, and make sure you understand how you can protect yourself. So how do we limit damage and quicken restoration if you end up having a ransomware attack? So identify who to call for help. You need to know who your responders are going to be. Who do you call? Who's the outside partners you call? Do you call Cisa? Do you call a vendor? Do you have a third-party agreement with the consultant group, or a government industry responder such as state and local government? GOSEP, there in Louisiana is with the state police is one great people to know about and have a relationship with. Know who your CSA and protective security advisor and cybersecurity advisor are from CISA. We can help with some coordination activities. Know who your other technical advisors are, maybe third-party vendors, maybe people you're paying as an organization, and law enforcement. Know who you're going to call in the event that it's a law enforcement that needs to be involved. Maybe it's fraud, or maybe it's some sort of maybe it's not ransomware, maybe it's some sort of other type of activity. Know who law enforcement is and who you need to reach out to. Have that written in your cybersecurity plan. That should be documented. That should be shared across your organization. Anybody that has the need to know should be able to have this information, this call list, have this information in front of them, and know who to call and why to call and when to call. As an organization, try to develop incident response and disaster recovery plans. We can't, we want to be proactive. So if we're proactive, we have to have plans developed. We got to know what we're going to do before we ever have a incident. You guys live in Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. I know we had great hurricane plans. Hurricanes coming, people know where they're going to go, what EOCs they're going to report to. They know exactly the game plan on how to weather a hurricane. The same should be true for cybersecurity. You should know where you're going to go, who you're going to talk to, who's going to be engaged first, second, and third in the event that you have a cyber incident. It really should mirror cyber, in some cases, in some ways, should mirror some of the physical security that we put together. We put together really good physical security, and sometimes I feel like we skip over some of the cybersecurity when really they're very similar. Just like we might know how to respond to a hurricane or a flooding of incident after Katrina, things like that. We ought to know exactly how to handle incident response with malware. We've had enough malware responses now that companies should be developing good malware and ransomware plans and have those distributed and documented and sent to those who need to know. Test those plans. It's one thing to have the plans, but you got to test them. You got to make sure they're going to work. And then prioritize your resources and identify which systems must be recovered first. You got to know your critical systems. You got to know what's most important. 911 systems, super important. Law enforcement systems, typically very important. Anything that has to do with saving lives or any of that should be obviously high priority. And then you might have other critical services that are secondary or third, and you need to have that in your plan as to what systems are important and how you're going to get those systems back up. Very important. That stuff needs to be written down, needs to be documented, it needs to be in agreed upon plans, and that should all be done prior to ever having an incident. And that's part of your proactive view of cybersecurity and your proactive response. So booting up, first things to do. So even before you begin to adopt a culture of cyber readiness, there are things that you can do today to make your organization more prepared. So this is what can we do right now? What if I had to tell you as an advisor, what can you go ahead and start doing right now? Maybe you don't have a plan developed. Maybe it's going to take you a little time to get that going. Maybe there's some things, but there's some things you can do right now. One of those things is back up your data. Get with your IT group, get with your security group. Let's start making sure we get those backups running. Make sure you figure out a way to get them saved offline, and make sure you're testing them on a recurring basis, once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a quarter, but whatever fits your organization, make sure you're testing them. Multi-factor authentication. Let's try to get multi-factor authentication enabled. It will do nothing but benefit you. It will do nothing but provide you with more security. A little bit of a monetary and time requirement to get multi-factor authentication enabled, but Microsoft operating systems, if you're running Microsoft Active Directory, things like that, multi-factor authentication is built into those operating systems, and you should be able to get those going with not too much difficulty. Patch and update management. Make sure you're patching your systems. Make sure you've got automated updates installed and on and running. Make sure you're testing them, making sure they're running. Replace any unsupported operating systems. If you're still running Windows 98 or Windows XP and these aren't legacy systems, these are not systems that you can't upgrade, but you could and you just haven't. You need to start looking at buying the more updated operating systems that are out there. Get those systems updated because they're going to be higher. They're going to be more supported. The software is going to be more supported on them. The security is going to be better on them. Get your operating systems updated. Whether you're running Linux, get your kernels updated if you're running Linux operating systems. Your applications and your hardware. Stay on top of getting updated application versions and hardware where applicable, where you can do that. Some cases we realize that you have legacy information, especially with control systems and industrial control systems or SCADA systems. You can't always replace all the hardware or applications. We understand that, but try to figure out workarounds. Maybe you need a firewall, maybe you need other types of appliances or hardware. Figure that out, and let's try to get our vulnerabilities minimized, and then test and deploy those patches quickly. Don't sit on patches. Try to have every patch Tuesday. Try to have those patches being applied after you've had a period of testing them to make sure that they're going to work for your organization, but in a timely fashion, try to get them updated. So that's kind of the threats. That sounds kind of some information that can give you some information. I have just a couple of slides left. I know I'm running a little bit out of time, but that maybe be you or maybe organizations that that didn't get to make this this presentation that you might can talk to them a little bit about. CISO, we're funded to provide cybersecurity assessments to you at no charge. We have a lot of different security assessments and different things that we can do, both on the cybersecurity perspective and a little bit on the protective security perspective. And all of our services are free. They're already paid for. They're there for you to take advantage of. A couple of our assessments are things like our vulnerability scanning service over under to the right there under assessments and evaluations. Our vulnerability scanning is where we come in and we scan your perimeter network and we provide you back vulnerability information. It's fantastic. Something everybody should take advantage of, in my opinion. And it's a fantastic assessment that's there for you. We have penetration testing assessments. We have about 3 or 4, maybe 5 assessments that do different types of penetration testing and scanning of different applications that you have to determine vulnerabilities. So it's a fantastic assessment, and there's a lot of information there, a lot of opportunity there for you to do your own penetration testing at no charge. So if you're running on a limited budget, which we all are, these are assessments that will get you going with preventative measures right away. We have a phishing campaign. I was talking about security awareness very, in a little bit of detail, that your employees have to be tested. You have to know where your employees are and their ability to understand and identify threats and scams and phished emails, spear-phished emails, things like that. The phishing campaign is a fantastic campaign that will test your security awareness training ability, or your security training awareness program, rather, maybe in your organization. And that PCA or phishing campaign is one that's very easy to do, very low end on your low effort on your part as an organization, and provides you back some good information. Then we have a couple of different other assessments. We have an architecture design assessment and a self-assessment tool that you can kind of run on your own, which is our CSET tool. Those are technical assessments that we offer. They're there for you to take advantage of, and I can certainly give you way more information and brief you in detail on these assessments if it's something that you're interested in. We also have a couple of assessments that we provide as CSAs or cybersecurity advisors that we would come to your site and facility and do some of these for. Our assessments are more question and answer, survey-based assessments, are 100% voluntary, and they're based much around risk and things like that. The Cyber Resilience Review, the CIS, the EDM are 3 that we offer. So those are, the Cyber Resilience Review is much of a risk assessment, the CIS is much of a controls assessment, and the EDM is much of a third-party vendor assessment. We've also, in our CSET tool, we have a ransomware readiness tool. You can download the CSET tool, which I'll give you a link to in just a second. Download it. There's a good ransomware assessment you can run on yourself to help you kind of determine where you're at from a ransomware perspective and help you kind of view that. Some resources and links you can kind of look at. Feel free to screenshot this or whatever you might do, or if you email me later, and I'll be happy to send these links to you. But the Cyber Essentials link, our ransomware readiness assessment I just mentioned, it's there, as well as our Cyber Resources Hub, which is a website with all of our assessments and everything just in one spot. It's a fantastic place to start working with CISA to see kind of some of the things that we offer from a cyber perspective. And we also have a ransomware page. You know, ransomware is a big deal right now. Here's a ransomware page. Gives you a lot of information about ransomware, current threats, current ransomware that's out, information on that. And it's uscert.gov/ransomware. And that web page will certainly give you a lot of information on ransomware and help you give you mitigation information, help you give you prevention information, things like that, even help you determine what the current strains of ransomware are, and maybe exactly a little bit more information about what they do, things like that. So it's a great website. Feel free to write it down, screenshot it, or email me, and I'll get you that link as well. I'm kind of running out of time, and here's my contact information: email address, cell phone number.